one task, but you know, that's good. So, I don't have a presentation, I'm just going to be talking, so I apologize if I bore you, but I will try not to. I'm going to be talking today about getting a teacher recommendation and filling out the brag sheet. So, but we're going to start with, I'm going to ask you a few questions, and I would like you to raise your hand if these things apply to you. I promise to keep it short. But just as a warm-up, I think this one's going to be like a little more interactive. So I'm hoping to, that's why I turned the lights on, because I don't want you to be sleeping. First, I want you to raise your hand if you like asking for help. If you just really love that please, can you help me, you enjoy that. No? No? Okay. I would like you to raise your hand if you like writing. Anybody here like writing? Okay, we've got some writing fans. Do you like writing about how great you are? Ms. Sargent, please put your hand down. This is not a question intended
Impact
for you.
evaluation sponsor.
Right? Okay. All right. Let me ask you one more. Raise your hand if you like. Raise your hand if you like taking up somebody else's time. Okay, so we got one, but most of you know. I do all of this to illustrate, filling out a brag sheet, asking for teacher recommendations is not necessarily an easy or pleasant thing to do, but all of you will have to do it, and you will have to do it for the recommendation sometimes more than once. So, the plan today, we want to give you a few suggestions, a few skills to help get you through that process, because it is unpleasant, because it is difficult. It's not always fun. It's not fun to ask for help. Trust me, I know, because I never do it. So, first, let's talk a little bit about why. I always like to ask students about why. So I'm going to ask you, why do we get teacher recommendations? What do we need them for? Or why do you need them for college applications? Yeah.
It'll show like colleges how good of a student you are and stuff, and how to get you higher positions.
Okay, yep, definitely.
It really helps the college see if you're a good fit for them, and if your work ethic is in the classroom, if it fits their student.
Okay, so they get a little more information about you to see if it's a good fit, see if you fit their standards. Yeah.
Basically, we're talking about recommendations, right?
Yep.
Oh, it basically just says like what you're saying is kind of true a bit, and like if you're a good fit, I guess.
So a little bit of confirmation, right? Because they're already getting information about you from you. They want information about you from someone else. Yes, all of what you said is true. It can give them more information about you, your academics. A little more in detail though, and this I stole from Miss Arrington because she told me about it earlier, but it's very true. Teacher recommendations give the colleges a very unique insight into who you are. Not just your what you've gotten for grades, not just, because they have your transcript already. This is a little bit more information about you as an individual, about your motivations, about your interests. Why are you going to college? What do you want to study? Yes, your work ethic. How do you approach problem solving? That kind of thing. So that's the kind of stuff that you can get from a teacher recommendation if you go about it in the right way. So then the next question I have, since it's the other thing I'm talking about, is brag sheets. Why do we do the brag sheets, do you think?
What's a brag sheet?
It's a great question. What's a brag sheet? Does anybody know? Yes.
It's like a sheet that asks you a bunch of personal questions about yourself.
Yes. It is a sheet that asks you a bunch of personal questions about yourself. You can access, there's one that's called the Tiger Paws survey on Naviance, and we'll have you go to that in a little bit, but it asks you questions like, what's your post-secondary pathway? What colleges and universities are you considering? What are your career goals? What extracurriculars do you have? What adjectives do you use to describe yourself? Those are just some examples, right? The brag sheet is an opportunity for you to communicate to whoever you give it to, be it your teachers or us as the counselors, because we will also be doing recommendations for you. A lot of information about you, what you want, what your strengths are, how you spend your time, stuff like that. So that's kind of what a brag sheet is. Why is that something that we are asking you to do? How does that help? Yeah.
basically a brag sheet.
Yes.
Basically, so when you make say you're trying to hype yourself up for college or roles that you work with and stuff, maybe.
So the brag sheet is something that you would send to either your teachers, or we will be able to see it as well when we're writing your recommendations. Why is that a good idea? Yes.
I think it's a good idea because if the person who's sending in the recommendation, if they see something on the website and they're like, that's really cool, they can add it in and then they can see other stuff that you're into and they can like tie that into how you're a good fit for whatever college you're trying to get.
Yes, exactly. So your teachers, and of course one of the things we're going to talk about is selecting a teacher who knows you well. Hopefully your teacher knows you pretty well. Your counselor may know you well, not so well, somewhere in the middle. But even if they know you very well, there's almost certainly going to be information on that brag sheet that they don't necessarily know. So this is an opportunity for you to really give them some more meat to put into that recommendation. The more completely that you answer these questions on the brag sheet, the better your recommendations are going to be. Does that make sense? Yeah, so that's what we're talking about. So that's the why. Now we're going to try an exercise that Ms. Sargent recommended, and I think is a really good one. I'm going to ask you to take, we'll say 10 minutes, and I want you to think of your favorite teacher, and I want you to write a recommendation for them. Teacher, whoever, insert teacher's name here. Hypothetically, say they're applying for DC Educator of the Year. You know, and you really want this teacher to win. So you want to write them a recommendation to win that award. Right? And there is a prize that comes with it. So, what you're going to do is I want you to take 10 minutes. I want you to write up a recommendation for this teacher. And there's a reason why I'm asking you to do this that I promise I will tell you. Maybe you can guess it, I don't know. But that is what I would like you to do.
And you guys all have notepads in your folders with pencils.
Yes, you can scribble it on there. Huh? That doesn't matter. I'll even say your favorite teacher.
Oh wait, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about a teacher that was here last year and I still do them.
Yep. Doesn't matter if they work here, doesn't matter how long ago you knew them, as long as they stand out in your mind and you're like, yes, immediately, I know this is my favorite teacher. I want you to write them a recommendation.
Who is your friend?
Is Miss Frizzle a real teacher that you have in school?
I am Miss
Then,
I'm Michelle.
I mean, Miss Frizzle is great, don't get me wrong.
There was Mr. Congola and the other like.
I want you to keep in mind that this teacher, let's say you talk to this teacher and they really want to win this award, right? You know, there's a cash prize, and you know they're trying to, I don't know, feed their family or something. So you really want them to win. The stakes are high. Maybe they have a sick grandparent who's like, oh, if only my grandchild would win the DC Educator of the Year award. So, yeah.
But just think about your favorite teacher, right? Just tell me what's his name, so we start writing his name.
I mean, she's, it's not like she's.
Oh God, no.
Just look at it.
She works some of her life.
Oh, good for her.
I'm
Like out of the country. Oh my god.
So you gonna write it? That's okay. You can even call her a different name, really. It doesn't matter.
I actually know how to spell it.
Yeah, for the record, you won't be submitting this or anything, so you can write whatever you want. Well, just No. Teachers. The DC Educator of the Year. It's a very prestigious award that I just made up. It's my actual. I'm pretty sure that it's but it's not. Actually, no, it does because I know the name of the teacher who won it last year. It was not at this school.
Oh wait, I think it might have been my cousin. Say her name.
It was. I saw it in an email. It was a miss. I don't think she's your cousin.
No, well, my cousin was teacher of the year. Her name's Capria.
No, that's not.
No, I forget what school she's at. I forgot her name.
The one I'm thinking of works at Stuart Thompson.
No, she won a different one then.
Well, there's more than one teacher. This might have been it.
She won one of those teacher years. I forgot the name of that school. Shoot, it's in Southeast. Like that.
Is it a high school?
It's an academy.
Opportunity Academy?
I think it's like for special kids, not really.
Yeah.
It's near St. Elizabeth.
Oh yeah, I know where that is.
You know the
Seed?
school I'm talking about?
See?
Maybe.
I know the area, but I don't know. But it doesn't really matter. Look at the progress one. Come back. Just to say What's the what? The Educator of the Year.
Yeah, they know you so much.
There's nothing to be ashamed of here. But it's so great.
That's a lot of information. You don't really know there's so much available. It's very accessible, right? And you can do research. Okay, you can stop. I know I said 10 minutes and we're just gonna cut it off there. How was that for you? How was that experience? What was that? Painful. Painful. Anybody else? Was it easy? It was okay? It was easy? Okay. Did you feel like you had a lot to write?
Yeah.
A lot to say?
I'd love to say what I say.
If you had to fill a page with that recommendation, could you have done it?
Half page. Half page.
So let me ask you this, and it may be obvious, I don't know. Why do you think I asked you to do that?
To see where you are.
To what?
To see where you are right now.
See where you are right now?
To write, to see if you can write your own.
See if you can write your own? No.
See how it's like difficult for teachers
To see how it's difficult for teachers. Now, keep in mind, I asked you to write about your favorite teacher, right? Who you probably know at least a few things about. You know, you've seen their teaching, you've seen what they can do, you've sat in their class. It's hard. It's really difficult. So, another reason why you want to put as much on that brag sheet as possible. Does that make sense? The more, like, imagine if your teacher had given you a brag sheet that listed all of the answers to those kinds of questions about their teaching methods, about their education, about what they're passionate about. Would it have been easier to fill that out, to write that recommendation for them? Yeah. Huge difference. So I just wanted to illustrate that for you. Thank you for playing along as I experimented on you like guinea pigs. So, now we're going to talk about the brag sheet itself. I want you to go into Naviance on whatever device you were on Naviance before, and we are going to find it. Now this is the tricky part because I don't know exactly where it is, but I think it should be under surveys. But let me look at one of your computers and I can find it because I've found it before.
It's in the About Me tab under My Surveys,
There it is.
and surveys not started, and then it pops up.
Go back to the top.
Or the opposite of that.
This is the About Me tab.
The About Me tab.
Oh, without you.
There you go. Yeah, it's at the top right. You wanna go to the About Me tab, surveys,
And then
surveys not started.
Mhm.
That'll take you to the brag sheet.
Yeah.
Oh no, we just did the, they were writing recommendations for their favorite
Yeah.
teacher.
Ooh.
Apparently it was very difficult, or some found it easy, but
Oh.
everybody agreed that the brag sheet would have made it a lot easier.
Oh, good. I'm curious to know how many people done.
We had a few. We had Mr. Rockloff was one,
Mhm.
Ms. Chavis was another. I don't know about anybody else because they didn't tell me. But. So is everybody able to find the brag sheet? You want to go to the About Me tab on the top right. And then there should be one for surveys. Surveys not started. What does that say?
Surveys not
Click on, yeah, click on that and see what it
Surveys
is.
not started. And
No, that's fine. Why does it tell me
There you
that?
go.
Sorry. Yeah, hit my surveys. Surveys in progress. Okay, surveys not started. There you go.
I appreciate you.
Tiger Paws, self-evaluation.
Well,
Yeah, you want Tiger Paws, self-evaluation. So, these are the questions that it's asking. Some of them seem pretty straightforward. As I've said before, the more information that you put in here, the better your recommendations will likely be. So, basically this part of the exercise is just to look at it. If you have any questions about it, please ask me. What we're going to do with this time, though, is I'm going to have you actually start to fill it out right now. I know. Scary. No, it's not scary. It's exciting.
Rich answers. Don't be afraid to brag.
Please.
You can go back and edit this at any time that you want. We really like to know this. I'll tell you this much. If we are in an ideal world next year where we don't have to worry about being virtual, where you can make an appointment with your counselor prior to your applications due, I'll tell you what I would like to do with your brag sheet. I'd like to sit down with you and ask you questions about it. Then sometimes that will lead me to asking even more questions, and it gives me a better idea of how I would like to share who you are. Did you note that there's also the teacher brag sheet?
No.
So the brag sheet that you guys are filling out is the one that the counselors use. Sometimes teachers will also have their own requirements for brag sheets. There is a teacher version of a brag sheet you can fill out as well. It has a lot of the same questions as the counselor brag sheet. Sometimes teachers want to use the information in the counselor brag sheet, but each teacher may be different in what they want from you. Some teachers will even say, write me a paragraph that you think I should write about me. What do you guys think about that? Is that easier or harder than writing the recommendations for your teacher?
honestly, I think it would be harder, just because I really
I
hate
think so
writing
too.
about myself.
And I think that this is, so this part, along with writing your college essays, this is oftentimes a shift from what you guys have been doing as students for the majority of your time as a student. So it's kind of exciting, but this is what you will eventually be doing as well for jobs, cover letters, job
Yes.
applications. You know, we'll talk about your skills, your abilities, what you bring.
This kind of thing starts now and it never goes away. It just keeps coming back. Has anybody here had an experience where you had to kind of write something about yourself like this before? Yeah, what was that? Your job. Exactly. Well, I won't keep asking you questions because I know you're trying to tell
I
us.
want you guys to get started on this, even if it's just a couple of notes. They can be, if you don't know what to say, it doesn't have to be full sentences, it can be bullet points. The other thing I find with 11th and 12th graders is a lot of times you guys forget about the activities that you've done until the season comes around. So next fall, you might forget that, oh yeah, I did this in the spring. Until the spring comes around and they're, oh, I never told Mr. Camara. That was another activity where I forgot to include it on my fall applications, etc. So kind of keeping track of some of those things. But any activities that you guys have done since 9th grade can be important inside and outside of school. Jobs, volunteering, or other ways that you dedicate your time. If you're a nationally ranked gamer, you know what? Tell us. That's how you spend your time. Doesn't mean it's going to get you into college, but it certainly explains how you spend your time. It might get into some schools, I don't know, maybe Full Sail game design program would like to know that.
One of my friends did game design at Rensselaer. He took a class on it anyway. They designed a video game. Strange things.
A friend of mine who studied in the mass media program at AU eventually was the person who chose all the music for Nintendo. I know. Yeah.
So can I interject as a parent for the brag sheet? This is a great thing to brainstorm with, you know, the people you live with. When you're thinking about, like, can you help me remember some of the things I've done the last couple of years? Because I know for my own kids, like, I'm like, oh yeah, let me look at I'm like, what was that group that had you like plant trees one day you did a community service project, and it was like, let me find the email and find the name of that organization. Or let me, you know, maybe there was something, remember you had that babysitting job that one summer that you did, you know, that was like something you did that shows some responsibility for caring for children, or something like this. You had a pet sitting gig for a while, something that, you know, sometimes you don't think about because it was just something your parents may have even set up for you to do, like go take care of the neighbors such and such, you know, whatever. But these are things that you might want when you start thinking about them to, you know, kind of write up about.
Another thing too is we are going to be making available some sort of a parent brag sheet. We're thinking about doing it in different ways for parents. Like in the past we've done it through Naviance, but since they switched to Clever, it's made it a lot more difficult for parents to navigate. So it might be like a Google Doc or just something like that where we'll have we'll ask if your parents would like to contribute. Please do not interfere with your parents' brag sheets. Let them brag about whatever they want. They don't get asked enough to talk about how awesome you are. And if awesome to them means that you won the 3rd grade science contest, please let them brag about you. We will filter the things we need, but your parents also many times have great insights. If a parent needs to provide something in another language, that's okay. We will either use the resources we have in our school building, or we will use Google Translate and still probably understand the essence of what they are sharing. But yes, your parents have lovely things to say about you.
interested to take care of.
Yeah.
Which I do.
I do. Yeah, exactly. I might not like kids, but you have to take care of it.
Yeah.
Plus, I think my summer job. Take care. Oh God, summer for that.
Oh wait, yeah, I think I'm planning to go on the summer job at some point.
Yeah, yeah. I think my job is gonna be some. Is either gonna be something related to hospitality, like hotel or destination DC thing, or I'm helping take care of kids.
Working in the hotels. Wait, where are you trying to go with for?
Pay good money.
Yeah, yeah, like what's the connection?
I have no idea. I just pressed the
Kind of like
I don't know. Do you like
yeah,
sales?
or if I work when you have money delivery.
Oh, that's where you're from.
Yes, sure.
All over everything. They pretty have their own business here.
Yeah, because I usually work with them every winter.
Okay, that's okay. So probably why they don't ask questions.
Hmm?
So probably why they don't ask questions.
No, it's not just fine.
Does anybody have any questions about the brag sheet? I know it's pretty straightforward, but
Is the brag sheet only 14 questions?
I believe it is, yes, 14. If there's anything you're not sure how to fill out, not sure what you should put, we'll do another, give you another few minutes before we move on. This is something that you don't necessarily have to finish today, because I do think it's important to sit and, like the sergeant said, like I said, you want to have conversations, you want to really reflect on what you've done, what's important to you, what matters to you. Because things that are important that you have done, things that you have done that you learned something from, that you really got something out of, that's where you're going to get the best material. I like what Lorianne said about talking to your parents, because I know there are things that I do not remember. Even now, sometimes I'm talking to my mom, and she's like, "No, you don't remember you did this. No, you did that. You know, it's a different perspective." So this is something that really put a little time and thought into it. Have conversations, stuff like that. So I don't necessarily want you to finish it today, but get something down, and then return to it later and really put stuff in. Give you another minute or two. See if Mackenzie comes back in that time. And then we'll start. If you don't finish your brag sheet today, you can go in and edit it later, so you can submit it and then edit it at another time. But make sure you don't just close your laptop after you've written it in, because then it will be gone forever. So either save it or, I don't know, copy and paste it into like a document or something, so you have some record. Okay, so we're gonna move on. Next thing we're gonna talk about, as Ms. Sargent was mentioning, is teacher recommendations. Now, some of this part is I'm just going to be giving you information. I know I said this is gonna be a little more interactive. This stuff is just things that you need to know about the teacher recommendations, right? Now, I don't know if any of you were able to attend virtually the college info night that we had with Ms. Arrington, a few months ago. There is a recording on the website if you were not able to, if you're curious, but I'm going to be rehashing some of that information as well as talking a little bit about some other stuff. But, so asking for teacher recommendations. Well, let's start with this. What are some things that you think are important to keep in mind, or things you should do when you're asking for teacher recommendations, just off the top of your head? Yeah.
Be polite and humble.
Be polite and humble, always a good idea, absolutely. Yeah.
I would say really think about who you're picking to give the recommendation. Make sure it's a teacher that you feel like you have connection with.
So a teacher that you have a connection with, someone who knows you, put in a really good word for you, picking them carefully, yes. Anybody else? So yes, those things are important, definitely. I will say here are just some things that you should know. I would recommend you write them down somewhere just because it's a good idea to know them. When do you ask? You should ask for a recommendation before the end of your 11th grade year. I know that sounds weird, but there are some teachers who only will agree to write a certain number of recommendations, and after they've been asked for that number of recommendations, they won't take any more, even if it, you happen to be their most favoritist student or something, right? Some teachers do have a limit just because of they only have so much time, so many hours in the day. So they will say, after this many, it's a cutoff. So you should request before the end of your 11th grade year. So start thinking about who you might want to ask now. Additionally, it should be someone who ideally who you've taken their class within the past 2 years. So that's 11th grade or 10th grade. Ideally, it should be someone in that window because that's of recent knowledge. Because also, you may be aware of this or you may not really be aware of it. You've changed a lot since 9th grade, right? I remember when I started working here, you all were 9th graders. The people sitting in front of me now are not the same people who are sitting in front of me now, right? So, if a teacher had you in 9th grade, you may have had a great connection, but it's best to know someone who knows you now as you are now, because it is the you now that is applying to college, right? So within the past 2 years. If they say no, for example, if they've reached their limit and they're like, oh, I can't take on anymore, it is recommended that you graciously thank them and then ask somebody else. Nothing personal necessarily. It could be that they, for whatever reason they can't. Don't take it too harsh. It doesn't necessarily mean anything about you. It just means you need to find another person. So think of a couple teachers you want to ask. Another thing that you need to keep in mind, Ms. Sargent, what was it that you were asking me if I had talked about?
Number
Yes.
teachers?
So the number of teachers you want to ask. You want to use the same teachers for all of your college applications. You don't want to be asking this teacher for this college, and this teacher for that college, and this teacher for that college. That's not what you want to do.
There's only one exception I would say to that, and that is if a teacher has attended a specific college and quite likely has approached you and said, I would like to be your recommender for that college. The reason why this gets difficult when you are trying to set up specific teachers for specific colleges as opposed to using the ones that are already in the system is, frankly, it's partially a Naviance issue, where Naviance is just going to send what is available, and then the other piece is, why make that many people do that much more work? Teachers are happy to write a recommendation for you, but if you don't need 5 recommendations, because most schools will not take 5, don't ask 5 teachers to take their time and write 5 different recommendations.
And just to go along with that, like if you do have a teacher that went to a particular school, like say Mr. Wilson went to Harvard, right? And let's say you're applying to Harvard, and you want him to write specifically for Harvard. In Naviance, now you can pick what teacher you want to write for what university. So you can either select all, where you can have both your recommendations go to all of your schools, all your applications, or if you want to pinpoint out Mr. Wilson for Harvard, you can click on Mr. Wilson and click Harvard for him to write to. So they actually added that little bit of piece because people were trying to figure out, I want this teacher to write for this school, I want this teacher to write for that school. It gets a little confusing, of course, but you do have the option to select a school for a recommender. But we would like for you to just choose 2 teachers to write for all of your schools, unless you're in the arts, theater, things like that, where sometimes you need a specific art teacher to write for a particular school that you're going to send a portfolio to, or something like that. But everything else, we try to get you guys to select all applications, which is might be the second button, I can't remember, for all of your schools, so it doesn't get confusing.
It makes it a lot easier on back end, the counselor, and it makes it a lot easier for us to send all of your documents at once when they're all submitted for the first time by those teachers, if it's just the 2 teachers, so.
Some
And your
other
future
things.
applications get more efficient.
Teachers do submit their own
They do.
recommendations.
They do.
Another thing to keep in mind when you're doing this, when you are actually starting your college applications, you will most likely be working with Common App. There is a function to request teacher recommendations through the Common App. Do not use that.
Say it
Do
again.
not use that.
Say it again.
Do not use the Common App
One more
to
time.
request teacher recommendations. Apparently, I'm told by Ms. Arrington, it causes an error that's very difficult to solve. So,
Yes.
if you see in Common App, click here to request teacher recommendation. Don't click it. Don't do it. Don't listen to them.
Don't
No matter what
listen
they
to
do.
them.
Just kidding. But no, they do not do that because it will cause problems.
And also it's a button for council recommendation as well. Do not make any recommendations through Common App. I'm gonna say that again. Do not write that down, put it on the back of your phone, do something. Do not make any recommendations through Common App. Because you will cause a teacher to not be able to submit for anybody else in this building. That's what it does.
That is tricky.
And then your counselor will be uploading recommendations for you.
Oh joy. All right, so when you get to the point, a teacher has said, yes, I will write your recommendation for you. The next step for you is you want to ask them, what would you like to know about me? Is there any other information you would like to know? And you're going to say, I already have my brag sheet that I filled out for the council of recommendation. I can give you that. Or is there anything specific you want to hear about? And even if they don't ask you for more, go ahead and prompt them, right? That's a great opportunity for you to say, what would you like to know? Would you like to know any more information? So make sure you do that. In fall of 2021, when you're doing the actual college application, when you're working in Naviance, you want to make sure that you, I think there is, Ms. Arrington, correct me if I'm wrong, in Naviance, in fall 2021, there is something that they're supposed to do 30 days before.
Yes, request their
What I'm working on.
transcript.
That's what it is.
And we'll request the recommendations, actually.
Request the recommendation for Naviance, not Common App,
Yes, not
but
coming.
Naviance, at least 30 days before your deadline.
Yes.
I will say that again because Ms. Arrington has asked me to repeat it. At least
At
30 days
least.
before your deadline. Through Naviance, you can request the recommendation. Now, this is after you've already communicated them. This is after they've already agreed, right? Because you, following the instructions that Mr. Camara
Yes.
so kindly gave you, requested it before the end of your 11th grade year. But now it's, we're traveling to the future, fall 2021, 30 days before your deadline. Does that make sense?
And Evan, I don't know if you mentioned that when you are requesting your teacher recommendations or thinking about your teachers, make sure it's from a core subject teacher.
Ooh, I did not mention that.
Thank you. Miss Jeannie actually brought that to my attention just as a reminder. Jenny, not Jeannie. Yes, a core teacher. So you want not a health teacher, not a PE teacher, not an art teacher unless you're going to major in art, but a core subject like physics, history, English, math, science, like all those those things, so a core teacher that knows you the best.
And preferably not two teachers in the same subject,
Subject.
Yeah.
so not two math teachers, for example.
Language, you can do like a lot of students are applying to liberal arts schools. You can do a language teacher if you're going to major in a language, or like as a minor or something like that. I wouldn't recommend a language teacher unless this teacher is like for the last 4 years have been in your life. You see them in the building, you have the best rapport with them, and they're just gonna, you know, wow, an admissions
with
person,
international night.
help you with international night, whatever it is, you're in their club or you do something like, you definitely yes, because again, you still want that teacher to know you the best. You're choosing two teachers that know you the best, so it can be a language person, but something in the core subject. If you can't find two in a core subject, then you can go to a language teacher. Because I've had some people who have loved, like Miss Wopat, who has just been, you know, astronomical in their life, like in terms of since freshman year all the way through, and she has written recommendations, but they were not majoring in Spanish or Venezuela.
So, that said, how do you go about asking for one? What do you think? What would you say? Yeah.
You politely email them.
Politely email them. Okay, what's some stuff you might put in an email? Or how might you word that?
Hello, this is blank from period class or year of I was wondering if I could have a recommendation from you for a future college endeavor.
I think that sounds pretty good. Anybody else? What would you say?
Basically the same thing as Ed. Just basically fluff their attitude or something. Like, I don't know, guilt them or I don't know.
I wouldn't recommend trying guilt as the first
Not
go-to,
that.
but yeah, just politely ask. It's yes.
Some things about email etiquette, just as a reminder.
Yeah.
You know, your teachers are used to the way that we have all taken to communicating via email in other ways, but still, please remember to do things like put a subject in your email.
Oh, yes.
Make sure that you put your name, your full name, in the bottom, not just a first name. Because if you've got glitteryunicorn@gmail is your email account, and you just sign with your first name, and I'm gonna pick on Ella because there's a lot of Ellas in 11th grade. They don't necessarily always know who that is. Make sure you put your first and your last name. I like that Simon had said, I took you third period, second semester, or whatever that time was. And also put a phone number where they can reach you.
Yes.
Just so that you have like they know how to contact you, and you're making it like a professional email, right? They can say, oh yeah, because even that impression of how you ask makes them think about how they will be representing you on paper. So for an email request, that is it. Now, I keep going. I'm gonna have some other thoughts that if they don't come up, I'm gonna share.
Okay. Did you have a question, Kyle?
I was gonna tell you, like, I like your idea, but if you're doing it in person, I would, first start by saying, they would appreciate if you have the time to do a recommendation for me, because I feel that you are the best candidate. I feel that you will know the most about me, so I'm positive you will give the best, information to the college, and just make sure you know that you're appreciate them and that you think that they are going to do well by you. So,
Yes, I think that's some of what you were trying to imply,
Yes.
right? Kind of explain why you chose them if you want. Not going on too long about it, but saying, I really appreciated in this class, blah, blah, blah. I think you would speak really well to blah, blah, blah. Examples like that to help, show them why you are going to them and why you're asking to them specifically. So, but I like also what you said, Micaiah, about if we're doing it in person, because that, could happen. So I think we're going to do two things before we close today. One, I want all of you to go and we're going to start drafting an email to write to a teacher. You don't have to know who to yet. You don't have to know who, but to a teacher. Start writing something just so you have something to go off of when you leave. And secondly, I think we're going to not take too long on this because we're almost out of time, but I think we're going to do a little role play. about asking someone in person
Yeah.
for the recommendation.
Love it.
Yes, Ms.
Can I
Sargent?
make one more suggestion too
Please.
for both types of asks? By completing your request by saying, if they say yes, what would you like from me, right? They're doing you a favor, but you have to provide them. So if they say they want you to fill out the brag sheet, great. If they have their own questionnaire, like I think Ms. Kraft has her own 3-page questionnaire. Ms. Wolpat's gonna say, contact get your copy of your transcript from the counselor if you don't have it. They're gonna want things from you so that they can feel like they're doing a good job, so they have the tools. So be ready to respond to whatever they need. So I think letting them know that you already know that they might need something from you is helpful.
So saying something like, please let me know and let me know, thank you, I'm asking you for this, please let me know and let me know what more information you might need.
Exactly.
Is always a lovely way to close.
Absolutely. Because then you're offering something else.
Yeah.
Feel a little better about it. So I think we're gonna do role play now. Since I saw how excited all of you were for that part. Miss Sargent, can I ask you to be a volunteer?
Okay.
So I'm going to have Miss Sargent be a teacher. Some of you are going to be asking Miss Sargent for a recommendation. Miss Sargent, what subject do you teach? Or do you teach?
I'm an English teacher.
English teacher, Miss Sargent. You had Miss Sargent within the past 2 years. Miss Sargent knows you well, and you are going to be asking her to write a recommendation for you. Who would like to go? Who's going to be the lucky volunteer? All right, go ahead.
Should I stand up?
Yeah.
I'll
Walk
just
up.
pretend I'm at my desk during passing
She's
through.
at her desk.
Hello, Miss Sargent. Can I ask for a moment of your time, please?
Oh, hi Simon, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, I haven't seen you in a while.
Yeah.
Oh, what's up?
Well, I'm going off to college soon, and I'm really excited. And I'm looking for possible teacher recommendations. And I'm planning on majoring in English, which was why I enjoyed your class so much. And I was wondering if you could help me out with the process.
Are you asking me for a teacher recommendation? Okay, well, I'm glad that you asked, because I am only writing 20 recommendations this year, and you're my 18th student to ask. However, because I've had so many requests, I am going to ask that you fill out this book of before, and then get that back to me in 24 hours, and then I'll have it ready for you. Okay, great. You're going to be a great English student.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Miss Sargent.
All right. Now we're going to be a different kind of teacher.
Now we're going to have a different teacher.
Okay,
Okay.
let's see.
What subject do you teach now, Miss Sargent?
Now I'm a science teacher.
Science teacher. All right, I need another volunteer. Who wants to go?
Come on.
All right, go ahead.
Hello, how are you?
Oh, hi,
Haven't seen you in
Kaya.
a long time.
Oh, it's so nice to see you.
It's great to see you. I just wanted to come and tell you that I gotta get ready for college, and I feel like since we've known each other for a long time, and I really enjoy being in your class, doing your labs, I think we know each other pretty well. I really love your class. It's really great. You do a lot of good stuff. And I really think that I want you to be the person I really appreciate if you would do a college recommendation. What
Okay.
for me?
When's your first deadline?
I think the first deadline is in about, what I could do for,
Say,
No, just say November 1st.
November 1st.
okay.
Yeah.
My college deadline is November 1st.
Oh, okay. Well, it's November 3rd today. I'm sorry, October 3rd today. So, I don't know that I can promise that I'm going to be able to get it in on time. I can try, but you can check back with me.
I really do appreciate that. If you need anything from me, please feel free to ask. If you have anything that you feel like you need, if you think that would be best, please ask. I really do appreciate the opportunity. I hope you have a nice day. Thank you.
And I'm going to give you an alternate answer if the date is not going to. Micaiah, I do know you well. I don't think I need anything. I can write a really good recommendation without anything. So some teachers are that easy, guys. Yeah.
And so I just say, I really appreciate it. I thank you so much. I'm really glad that you gave me this opportunity. I think you're gonna do a great job for representing
I'm looking forward to writing for you, okay, hon?
Thank you. Great. I really appreciate that. I'll see you later.
Alright. Okay, now I think, can we do one more, Ms. Sargent?
Yeah.
Alright, we're gonna do one more, but I wanna highlight some things that I noticed from those first two that were very good. You see there was a lot of sincerity, a lot of gratitude, very gracious, very thankful, and also saying, it's really important, like I really enjoyed your class, stuff like that. I just wanted to call that out, but I noticed one last volunteer. Is it, did you want to volunteer, or you have a question or something to add?
I have a question though. If a teacher isn't fully committed, like you weren't with the November 3rd thing, is that a hint to the student to seek a different recommendation, or?
I think the student should just ask and say, like, do you think that you could write one, or do you think I should ask somebody else?
Because you don't want someone to send it in late,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
because that will just mess you up.
And that's less likely to happen when there's still 27 days to a deadline.
Right.
But when you're talking 1 week to a deadline, especially if it's a deadline that a lot of other students share, then that's a lot tougher sell.
I can tell you that 73% of our students will have a November 1st deadline, which is an early action deadline. So you're going up against 73% of your classmates that all have the same first deadline. So that's why we always request 30 days prior, because there's so many of you and you want to make sure you give ample amount of time for teachers and counselors to write your recommendation.
So you really, just to clarify that, you really ideally request
30 days before.
but like junior year,
Mhm.
you're requesting, and
You're
then just the
asking.
Naviance,
And
right, and then the
Naviance,
Naviance
yes.
request goes in 30 days
Yes.
prior, so it's like a two-step process.
Yes.
Exactly.
And your teachers aren't usually writing these right now. They're usually, unless it's maybe a teacher who's retiring, they're usually still writing them in the fall. So we can talk maybe a little bit about following up in the fall too.
But it's good to ask in the spring.
Ask
Right.
now because they're trying to manage their work for next year already.
Yep.
And some teachers do start writing in the summer, especially if they know you and don't need anything from you. So they kind of knock it off depending on how many students. So our very popular teachers will start in the summertime because they don't want to be doing it during the school year, just because they've got a lot going on with the new school year, scheduling and classes. So they kind of want to knock out a few during the summer if they can.
All right, we're gonna try one more.
Are you gonna be the teacher this time?
I can be the teacher, yes. What subject do I teach?
Social studies.
Social studies. I feel like I can do that. No. All right, so I need one of you to volunteer. Anybody? Right now, table 4 is showing all of you up.
Can I actually change your subject to art?
To art?
Yes.
Oh.
And a student's going to come to you that is going to be submitting a portfolio. So someone over here who is an art student, go give it a try. Isabel's like, nope, not me.
Anybody? We need one last volunteer.
What about, is there anybody in digital media?
Digital media,
Could
film
this be a
studies.
Stryker or Massenburg rec?
I can do because I wanted to be an AP artist and an artist.
Okay.
Are you volunteering? Come on over. I promise not to bite. I'm just friendly, Mr. Camara, the art teacher. You know?
Hi, Mr. Camara.
Oh, hi, Mackenzie. How have you been?
Good. I know you love my portfolio and the subject of the 9 months of motherhood.
Uh-huh.
And I just wanted to know if you would like to write a recommendation for me. Or if you can, my deadline is November 1st.
Okay.
And I know it's September, so I'm getting a little bit in the middle. So I just want to know if you would like to write a recommendation. I've had such a great time in the class throughout my 4 years, and I've had such a passion for art.
Uh-huh.
And I just really want to get into this school, and I think you are such a popular artist. So sorry about my some voice. You're such a popular artist and such a good teacher, and it's been so fun being in your class.
Wow, Mackenzie, thank you for all of the compliments. flattery always works with our teachers. Don't tell the other teachers that will do that. But yes, since it's September and the deadline is November, yes, I can write your recommendation. Do you have your grad sheet filled out?
It is almost done, but I will get it done by the end of this day to send to you.
That would be perfect. Thank you. Okay. So,
When your teachers write recommendations for you, what they really wanna know is what happens after that. So a lot of times kids will apply to schools and then teachers never find out if they got in or not.
Yep.
Please share the good news with the teacher, and especially those teachers that write recommendations for you, they love to hear it. They love to know that, honestly, that they were part of your process and that it worked. So that is something to think about, and also writing a thank you note or a thank you email, very helpful. It gives teachers life to want to continue doing this for other students in the future too.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Okay. Does anybody have any
Teachers are so
questions
gracious.
about
Right.
teacher? They were, right?
Yeah.
I can see we have some very skilled teacher recommendation requesters that will be coming soon. Does anybody have any questions about teacher recommendations, asking for them? I know I said we were going to do the draft the teacher email. I think it also said on the agenda we'll do that as homework since we're about out of time. But before we go, do you have any questions? You feel like you have an idea of what you need to do, how to get it done? Okay.
So when you guys are talking to your friends this weekend and they're like, my mom told me that she wants me to ask my teacher for a recommendation, I don't even know how. What would you tell them?
Yeah.
Okay, first I would tell them to pick a teacher that you know would very much like accept. I feel like if you pick a teacher that you know them, they know of you, you're kind of in the middle. You shouldn't pick a teacher that you feel like you know, but it's just not there. It's not as much as you need it to be. Like the connection, it's not.
Yes.
Like, let's say you had a teacher for half a semester, you didn't really talk to them as much as you talk to a teacher like the whole semester, and you talk to them like at lunch, you come to them a lot of times. I feel like you should pick a teacher that you really know would know you best to put all your good deeds and information on your recommendation.
That's very
So
good
if
advice.
I'm your friend and then I say, well, yeah, I think I want to ask Mr. Camara, but like, is he even going to do it? What do I do?
Okay, first, I think you should talk to him about it. If you do think Mr. Camara is somebody you want to give a recommendation for you, then first, ask him. Make sure that this is somebody you want to recommend to the college. Make sure this is the right person for you and not just somebody you're doing out of convenience because other teachers are not available. I think that is the
Yeah,
most
I've heard
important
Mr. Camara always says yes to recommendations. Maybe I'll just ask him.
You have to do it all of what you think is the best for you. If you feel like the teacher is really going to push and like get the student in, they're great, they're best for this, then pick that up. And not just someone
Yes. Okay. All right. Well, I think we've done a pretty good job of reviewing this, talking about this. So I think with that, we are going to break for lunch, which I'm sure is very exciting to all of you. I know I'm hungry. So I think we're good for now, unless anybody has anything to add.
Miss Jenny.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yes, so if you guys can be back here by 1 o'clock, that's when our next session will start, and I have, gift cards for you to go out to lunch.
So you guys get
Thank
from
you.
there gift cards today. Every Wednesday to be something different.
Thank you.